Okay, great. Well, we're going to give people just a minute or two more to log in because some people needed a link, so we want to make sure everyone can get signed in and participate from the start. So maybe we'll just, start in a minute or so. Until then, thank you for joining. We're excited to be here. It's kind of fun thinking about facilitating creativity and collaboration even remotely, and also figuring out all the technical stuff of doing that remotely. How does everyone get the right link at the right time?
Oh, it's been fun.
Yeah. I think flexibility might be a key component of moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have a lot to cover today. I think a lot of good conversation is going to happen. So I don't want to delay too long. There's a little housekeeping stuff we want to take care of up front too. So as people join us, they should be able to get caught up to speed pretty quickly. I just want to say hello. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Facilitating Creativity and Collaboration, Even Remotely. And very big thank you to Crew Seattle for hosting this conversation. We are really excited to be part of it. I'm Wendy Simmons, the founder of Middle of Six. We're a marketing consultancy, and we're focused on the AEC industry. So as you might imagine, creativity and collaboration are mandatory when it comes to marketing. It's just a must-have. And one of the amazing benefits of working closely with architects, engineers, and contractors is seeing their creativity and problem solving in action. We have a front row seat to their work. So that was the inspiration from my side for this discussion today. Our friends in the world of architecture have a really cool seat at the table, and even more so since we've started working from home. In their daily lives, they're facilitating ideation sessions and digging deep to understand the client's vision, all at the same time of having an eye towards the future and kind of looking at what those needs might be. Today we've gathered a panel of designers to share insights and best practices from how they work in their own firms. And I know, and we definitely hope, that you'll learn some really simple strategies and tips that you can bring right back to your own teams. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves in just a minute, but like I mentioned, a couple of housekeeping items that we want to cover. While the slides are up, which we only have a handful of them right now for introductions, this is kind of the view you'll have, but then we'll switch to gallery view, and you can set that on your own. That'll give you a good experience because then it will be more conversational, and you'll get to see all of our panelists at one, and it is planned to be more of a conversation. That said, everyone except the panelists will be muted, and we're not going to use the raise your hand function with this size of a group because it's just a little too much to handle, but we welcome questions that you have. So if you have any, you think of anything, please put those in the Q&A box, and Tracy's going to field those, and we're reserving about 10 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer questions from the group today. We're also going to start with a quick poll just to see what everyone's opinions and ideas are here. So I see the questions up on the screen, and Tracy should be able to get a polling question up. Not sure if my view can see that, but we will definitely, at some point, that is going to pop up. The idea is, with this move to remote work, what's been a top barrier to creativity? We picked 3 buckets that seem like they might kind of be sort of the biggest things you're facing, which are limited face-to-face time with your team members and clients, the use of new technologies or just getting people up to speed with technology, and then the probably real possibility that schedules are being reinvented or workflow is different, processes are different. So when you see that poll question come up throughout the webinar, pick A, B, or C, and then we'll talk about that towards the end also. Okay, so let's meet our panelists. I'm really pleased to welcome 3 talented leaders from the Seattle and Tacoma-based architecture firms. Each of them has really unique areas of focus in their work, but they're also all super communicators. Holly, you want to start?
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much for inviting us to join you today, and thank you everyone for being here and sharing your time with us. My name is Holli Smith. I'm an architect and interior designer from TCF Architecture in Tacoma. I've been there 20 years. In fact, my anniversary is coming up next week. For those of you who are familiar with Tacoma, we are located near Stadium High School, and Wright Park is nearby, and we are kitty corner from Wright Park in a 100-year-old 2-story building. In fact, it's kind of interesting. We just expanded within the last year. We grew down into the bottom floor and had a major remodel project, and just moved in within months of the stay-at-home order. And so we had all 40 of us in a really nice place in the office, and that was so exciting to us. And so this has been quite a transition. So my role in the firm is lead in marketing, where we pursue public projects for the most part. And when I'm plugged into projects, I use my skills in communication, verbally and written, to help narrate a story of people in place, to give a theme to a project for which the design team and all stakeholders and users can understand and rally around. And my secondary role as of late in the office is a member of our TCF-CTF, which stands for COVID Task Force. And so since probably week 1, this core team of 5 or 6 of us have been getting together weekly, if not twice weekly, to discuss everything that we've been hearing, seeing, learning, and we've been taking steps to implement our plan, which is coming together so that we can come back to our space real soon. So thank you for inviting me, Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber?
Yes. Hello, my name is Amber French, and thanks to everyone for being here today. I'm a principal at Johnston Architects, and I've worked here for 5 years. Our firm has about 30 employees. We're located on North Lake Union in Seattle. And we have quite a few, we do all different types of work, multifamily, single family, public work. We've got quite a few libraries going on right now. But my role is one of the heads of our multifamily studio. I'm also the lead of our employee wellness initiative, which is fairly important these days. I've been long inspired by how architecture can enhance community and well-being. And that's seemingly contradictory right now in our current climate, but I'll elaborate on that more later. I find myself relying heavily on my social and communication skills, something that Holly and Wendy both touched on, to facilitate collaboration. I also find value in each voice on the team, and both of these traits have been increasingly helpful as we're learning to work from home these past several months.
Awesome. And Lori?
Hi, my name is Lori Robbin, and I'm with BCRA. We are located, our headquarters is in downtown Tacoma, but we also have a Seattle office off of 4th and Stewart. I'm an associate principal. I head up the interior design team at BCRA. I've been there for 17 years. And my experience really focuses on managing projects that build up and support our communities, focusing on workplace, education, healthcare, and our recreation markets. We focus on projects that really unify our work in elevating the user experience. So spaces where people can gather, where they can feel support, where they can feel educated. And we just really thrive on developing spaces that really help build our communities. So it's something that we really enjoy working on. And during this time, it's just been a great way to connect with people. You know, our virtual connections have probably built some stronger relationships than we have previously, just because of that focused attention to one another. So I've really enjoyed that part of building my relationships with my team members and my clients.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know from talking with you, the three of you for the last, month or so, as we thought about what we wanted to share, how much of the conversation was based on opportunity and, the positive outcomes that are going to develop through this really big transition we've all gone through. So I have a very small team compared to your firms, but we've even been able to kind of hijack some of the best ideas here, and implement them with a tiny team. So I'm excited to dig into this a little bit more in even more detail than we've done in our prep. Hey, just out of curiosity, did that poll question get put up there? Did we see that? Maybe Tracy can let us know, but we definitely want to get the audience's opinion on that question that we put up there. So if you do see it pop up, please use that. And I'm going to just start off with probably the burning question, and the question I've heard and has been asked so many times, but now that we've been working from home for almost 2 months, and there will be at some point a transition back into the offices, what is the biggest challenges you've experienced related to collaboration?
Yeah, I can start that one off. One of the first things is we, all started working from home, and it was like, we can do this for a little bit. And then it was like, okay, this is going to take a little bit more time. So it's really, starting to engage this as a new opportunity. Definitely one of the challenges is reaching out to the team members that may be a little bit more quiet. They're not going to be the ones that put their first foot out to connect with you. So identifying those team members that you need to check in with and engage. But one of the great things that's come out of this is inviting some of especially our younger staff or new staff to the company to be part of some of the conversations they may have not have had exposure to in the past. So bringing them into a public meeting or sitting in on a client presentation, seeing our team as we prep for big interviews. So they're actually getting a little bit of a peek into some of the bigger elements of our company that in the past they may have been too busy working on a project at their desk or had other responsibilities. They're able to multitask and really have that multi kind of experience of different avenues. So that's been really exciting to me to be able to offer those opportunities to our staff.
I think I can build on that a little bit. I like what you said, Lori, about challenges and it becoming an opportunity. I think for me, it's been the same. Like there are a lot of challenges, but we're finding that with those challenges, we are needing to have more intention and more preparation and more communication to keep the projects running smoothly. And one example is right here, Zoom meetings, where we're actually finding that there's more consideration of the meeting goals ahead of time. We're putting those goals into our meeting agendas and distribute them before the meeting so that people have time to review them and prepare a little bit. Just a lot more forethought is really what we're seeing, including being better prepared with the meeting materials. So especially when it comes to conveying our ideas graphically. So one thing that some of our teams have been doing is actually having pre-Zoom meetings where we collaborate on markup software such as Bluebeam, just so that we can put all of our ideas out there and be really ready for the external meetings. And then finally, of all the tools that we had for face-to-face design, such as whiteboards and markers or physical drawing sets, and then especially body language, those have all been minimized to this one tool for collaboration, our screens. And so that's been a challenge because designers especially are very spatial people. Not being able to communicate an idea with body language has been difficult, so.
Yeah, when I think of one of our early challenges to collaboration, we had submitted qualifications and were selected to interview, give a presentation to a local public municipality, and they invited us to present using GoToMeeting. And, you know, of course, everyone's heard of GoToMeeting, but we had never used that before. And so we were excited about the opportunity to start to use technology, but also in a way felt a little bit like we had one hand tied behind our backs. The way we connect with clients in an interview, we really enjoy showing our personality, and even more so enjoy sketching on the fly as we're going through an interview presentation, and we get to learn more about their goals. And so at the time, and it's kind of silly to think about now, but at the time we were thinking, you know, wow, it felt like a very avant-garde idea to think ahead and go, well, what would happen if we actually have to start this project virtually? And what would that look like? And it kind of blew my mind at the time, thinking that we would even be at this long. And so we had some time to prepare, but not enough time to really get acclimated and buy new equipment. Equipment was hard to come by. And so we just did a very low tech, had our individual who mostly likes to sketch positioned in our office at the whiteboard with the surface facing toward him, and trace paper up with magnets on the board so that he was able to talk and think and demonstrate his creative ideas. And while we had the other individual who was you know, showing more of his personality and his role on the project, being more kind of the tech behind the scenes person. And so, you know, like I mentioned, it was a very low tech, but also a very natural way to present. And it felt good that we were able to adapt so quickly using the tools that we had.
I love that there are high-tech solutions that people could jump on right away, and also the whiteboard that's behind you is still a thing, you know. It has a place. Sort of related to this, you know, what are some of the creative and innovative ideas that you've seen come out of, you know, those challenges? I know you hit on a few, but I think that there are definitely some more.
Yeah, well, I can build on that actually, Wendy. So in preparing for the interview, we had heard of a colleague firm of ours who was using that technology. They happened to have the supplies and the gear on hand to be able to set up a virtual sketch space. And, you know, seeing that didn't feel like an option for us at the time, I mentioned we were successful in getting the project, and for a few weeks we basked in the afterglow of having won the project. And then we started to really think like, oh yeah, what were some of those things that we were talking about that we'd like to do in the future? Well, the future is now, and we're starting to think about going back and looking at our floor plan and our spaces very differently. And one of the first things that we identified were we had these two very small conference rooms, which during a regular time could fit up to 5 people fairly comfortably, but that definition of comfortably has certainly changed. And so now it just seems silly and irresponsible to put more than one person at a time in these tiny little conference rooms. And so one of the creative ways we are looking to adapt our office is looking into making that a virtual sketch lab, so that those of us who are so accustomed to working with our hands and speaking and drawing at the same time, getting the technology to outfit a space like that for a new use that fits how we would use it today.
Oh, that's cool.
I have something a little bit different to share. One of my colleagues pointed out recently that meeting virtually has helped to equalize the playing field, which I thought was interesting. It's really forcing collaborative communication, since we can't have, in these big meetings, we can't have side conversations anymore. So this has been great for our projects because all the parties are involved in the entire conversation, barring any internet connectivity issues or any of the other chaos that we might have on these virtual platforms. Another innovative idea that I wanted to share that's blossomed in our firm are weekly lunchtime project presentations. These are taking the place of when we would normally have our lunch and learns. So every week for half an hour, somebody presents on their project. And it's been so great because now that we're all siloed and working from home, we aren't you know, just gathering information or hearing about casual conversations about what else might be going on in our office. So we're really able to learn about other projects, which has been super helpful and just a nice way to kind of see, like, break away from our project work and see what's going on.
Sure, and then like gathering over lunch and a meal, it sort of builds community. That, you know, is another element there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, similar to what Amber was saying, we're seeing a lot of kind of those walls breaking down, especially as a firm that has multiple offices. In the past, that was a little bit of a divide sometimes. We even have somebody that works in Texas, so, you know, in Spokane as well. So we have people that are in different spots, but now there's a kind of a mutual understanding for everybody as we work together. I think one of the key things that we did as a company was about a year ago, we really embraced Microsoft Teams. And that became a platform for us to instantly have a tool that we all could collaborate on, connect with. We've taken up and researched, you know, as we first started staying at home, everyone has thrown out new ways of doing things. And so, you know, we're looking at Mural and Envision Freehand, which are some plugins that you can incorporate into Teams. And we are such visual learners, it was like, how can we continue that visual communication? And so those were some great avenues that we did that. We're also a very strong company that uses Bluebeam. We love Bluebeam, and it's a way to present. I just had a meeting with a client just before this, and being able to show them and be able to document changes instantly in that conversation have been key. And it actually allows us as team members to be more efficient, because you're not going back to the office and documenting your changes, you're doing it in real time. So we're seeing a lot of efficiency, we're seeing a lot of equality across our project teams. So it's been a great way to kind of continue where we were and how we can adapt it differently during this time.
Yeah, when I think about encouraging engagement, I've been paying attention a lot to the term better communication. And I know that's something I think we've all touched on so far this morning, but, you know, what does better communication mean? And I had kind of a silly little scenario happen to me a few weeks back, where I was in a team meeting and really was attuned to, after the fact, how much we're missing out when we're side by side with people, having the eye contact in a room, watching people when they're really engaged versus when they're kind of not. And so this was an in-house team meeting, and I'm normally a note taker. That's sort of my reputation. And in that one, I was not. And so at the conclusion of the meeting, I was asked to take the next steps and write up the minutes and take the action items. So I felt a little embarrassed, a little caught off guard, but thinking, didn't you see that I wasn't taking the notes? And so that made me also think about meetings, and not only having your material prepared to make the meeting go smoothly, but also start to think about ahead of time at the onset of the meeting, what could the roles be of the people involved, and start to tee them up for the action items or the takeaways that come from it, so that folks are paying attention to what they need to be paying attention to so that they can do their job after the meeting concludes.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I think both, we've heard this a couple times, you know, more planning, being prepared. I'm sure we all felt like we had planned it out and we're prepared and had agendas and we're doing all the right things in that way. But it's like it's been magnified a bit, you know. And also, I don't have any data on this, but it does feel like, especially early on, there was kind of a flood of Zoom video conferences, and meetings were big because it was kind of easy to join in, and you know, maybe we will kind of settle into like, what's the right cadence, what's the right amount, but that planning piece of having clear roles, the goal, communicating is important, because you can't just look around the room and really see that that's happening, you know. So we'll probably all become a little bit better leaders and communicators in that way, for sure. Other thoughts on encouraging engagement? Because I mean, the screen is so positive in many ways. The fact that we went from conference calls that were terrible and basically I feel like a nightmare to sit through to, okay, now everyone's on video. Okay, we jumped on board with that, but I still think that there's that wall of the screen that is hard to pull engagement from all the team members.
Yeah, we've definitely structured a lot of our internal communication with video is just a must. I mean, to be able to see each other, you're not fully engaged if you're behind an icon up on your screen. So, you know, making sure that team members are being part of that. But also when you're having a call with a client, kind of setting the rules of engagement for video, you know, ask them, you know, it would be great if you can join on video. We've had a few instances recently where we're interviewing for projects, and as soon as that presentation stops, they turn their video off. And it's really hard to feel like you're really engaging with people when you can't see them visually. So we definitely try to use that as our kind of our baseline for our meeting structure.
Interesting, yeah. And I just wanted to add, this is kind of a good segue from what you were saying, Wendy. I'm finding it's important when I'm the meeting facilitator, and I think we all are, that we call people out by name, right? Just to make sure, since there is a bit of a delay. But especially for those who may shy away from participating on a Zoom call. And so I'm trying to ask questions to help engage them in the conversation. And again, we've all talked about, a couple of us have talked about body language, but it's the same thing. You know, we can't rely on people's facial expressions as much or body language just to be able to tell if they have something that they want to share or contribute to the conversation.
Right. It is also easier for the people who are naturally quiet, you know, or thinkers and that sort of thing, to maybe not feel like it's easy for them to chime in and add to the conversation. That's good too. Call them out in a friendly, good way, you know, that works for them, but to give them a real opportunity.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention, you know, as we're a company of 80+ people, it's also the structure of how you do those larger meetings. We have some pretty amazing staff meetings monthly that really talk about our company and our core values, and you just don't want everybody sitting there and having to listen the whole entire time. So we've been using the Zoom breakout rooms as a way to break off into smaller groups. That way you can have some intentional conversations, allow everybody to have a voice, and then coming back as a larger group. So we've structured that for those larger staff meetings. I lead up our design development side at BCRA. So we do monthly meetings as well. Like this Thursday, we're going to be doing our charrette process. So taking a design problem on a project, and then we'll break into smaller groups of around 5 to 7 and allow people to really think about those ideas and work together to come up with solutions. So thinking about your meeting size and bringing it down to a smaller level, I think is something also important to consider when you're working with a team. That's just a better way to get people's involvement when there's not 50 people sitting there on the call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Something that, you know, we talked about and I found really interesting from your perspectives of, again, like, you know, the difference between a bigger firm and of course mine's a little bit smaller here, but maybe a casualty of working from home is that we just don't have those impromptu conversations like we used to. In fact, I called someone, a friend, a client or whatever the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't schedule this call, because it feels like everything has to be so scheduled now, you know, that it's that formal. So I'm just curious, you know, within your own teams or your companies, how are you supporting just casual, impromptu conversations?
Yeah, you know, the thing that we all missed at my office after we all worked from home was walking through the office and seeing how somebody's weekend went and what's going on with their kids. And we created a channel on Teams called the Water Cooler. And it's an avenue for people to have those moments to share. I mean, today I just saw somebody share that their son got accepted into a college, and she was super excited and she just wanted to tell somebody. But we have others that are sharing hikes, which I take that as a guide for myself to get my family outdoors. Photos of car parades with teachers in their neighborhoods, articles they've read about design. And so it's been a really great avenue to connect and not have that feeling like it has to always be focused on the work that we're doing. It's about the bigger work. It's the community engagement that we have. So that's been a really a nice connection. And then we just started on Mondays, we have small groups that get together and we're doing a 12-minute walk. Everybody goes out and does a 12-minute walk, and then we are listening to a podcast together. And then we come back and we jump on a quick Zoom call and talk a little bit about what we heard on the podcast or what it was like to get outside and just get that air. So it can be a connection of these virtual conversations combined with some other opportunities. So just think about things differently and how you can be innovative in having those casual conversations.
I love that idea of the walk. That's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to share a few things on this topic. First is that while the energy of our design collaboration has definitely shifted from these more spontaneous encounters that we've been talking about, like walking past someone's desk or seeing someone pinning up a project and just checking in with, like you said, Lori, how their weekends were. We have also shifted to using a Slack channel, similar to what you said, Lori. And then our lunchtime presentations have also filled a little bit of that void. But I have to say, like, something is definitely still missing, even though we're just trying our best in this environment. So we're definitely looking forward to collaborating again in person. But yeah, always looking for new ideas.
And what I can add to that topic is, all company communication is absolutely more important than ever. And we would have our Monday morning staff meetings regularly where we would all gather in the large conference space downstairs. And, probably like everyone, we were quickly able to pivot and start using Teams for our Monday morning meetings. But toward the end of week one of our principals really felt compelled to kind of write a State of the Union type email of, here's everything that we've gone through, and we're so proud of you and proud of the way that we've responded so quickly. And what that has turned into is something pretty cool. It's a weekly newsletter now, and it has components that are always the same, yet we're even continuing up to this week adding new layers. And some of those layers are, we issue a photo challenge at the beginning of the week and ask a question that says, within 1 to 2 sentences max, send us a photo of something that inspired you this week. Where did you find beauty this week? Even, show us a project that you were able to accomplish now that we all have a little bit more time at home. And so different people have contributed. We usually have about the same approximate number of contributors where when on Friday this newsletter comes out, one of the things that everyone looks forward to is this really fun photo montage of, again, like you mentioned, Amber, people's kids and projects and pets and flowers and, things that collectively inspire us. And another aspect to that newsletter that's been a really neat thing is a question of, the topic came out having to do with coping from home. I mean, really that's where it started, is we wanted to check in with one person a week and kind of ask the question, how are you doing this? Like, how are you coping? How is your family supporting you? And it's blossomed into so much more. Last week, it was fantastic. We had this so well-written personal essay of this young woman who wrote about why she came into the field of architecture, some of her personal experiences in meeting her husband, and the core beliefs that she and her husband share as they raise their children through this. And so, having small group conversation in the office, there would have been a small number of us that knew this about this person, but it was a really special thing for all of us to get to know this woman at this really intense level. So that has been a great blessing and a tool that we're going to continue to use, potentially even beyond when we're all back at work together.
That's really neat. I meant to add something too that's sort of similar. It's an initiative that we conceived of before COVID-19, but now we've modified. The idea initially was to have one-on-one employee check-ins, so similar to what you're saying, Holly, but more one-on-one, so it's not necessarily being shared with the rest of the group. I like that idea of sharing it. But these check-ins would occur for 5 minutes each employee, and once a month. And the questions that, and I'm the one doing the employee wellness program in our office, so I would ask the questions: how are you doing? How can I support you? And what are you working on? But since we've been working from home, all of a sudden the program was super important. And so we started doing every other week check-ins for 15 minutes each. And we mostly focus on those first two questions: how are you and how can I support you? And in the beginning, there were a lot of questions of just more tangible support, like how's your internet connection? Are you, some of our employees live alone. How, are you getting to at least have any interaction at all? And in that beginning phase 2, it was a lot of people really needing to talk. Some people were, it was a little bit quicker, but really needing to talk. And I think I started even with like just these 10-minute blocks. So I increased them to 15. But now as time has gone on, and as people have said, we're getting used to this. Some people have opted to go for once a month, but it's just been super helpful and really nice for me to get to know everybody. But it might be neat to evolve this into sharing some of the things with the whole firm, like you guys do at your firm, Holly.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Friday midday, if that newsletter is not out, we're wondering, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I so appreciate this increased attention to employee wellness and connecting and having a real relationship. I mean, it's not new, but it's just been lovely to see people really embracing that and using it. I can say for our team, we have a remote team member, and we felt connected enough until the work from home happened. And then we realized we wanted to huddle and have this every morning and get together and really connect. And sometimes there's a bit of agenda and we need to get something accomplished. But a lot of times, there might be a silly hat or a dog on your lap and just a conversation and laughing and figuring out what was what people did. And it is really important. And I've heard from every one of my team members, we're keeping this, right? No matter what, we're still doing this 10 a.m. huddle. And, I hope that is the case for lots of firms. I hope that they have the opportunity and that their systems are set up in that way, because, my team certainly is stronger for it. And it didn't even occur to us, before 2 months ago that was something we needed. So thank you for sharing all of those good ideas, and the fact that I appreciate that you're all kind of connecting with your people in that way, in that personal way. Our next question, I think, has the potential to have been a whole topic on its own, a whole webinar. So we'll see how long we go on this one. I still want to reserve some time for the audience questions here. But this one's about looking forward, into the future, how we think that design might change for the workplace or for your home space or your office or just community spaces that might, impact collaboration. I'm guessing for the positive, right? We're going to still want that connectivity and stuff, but what are you seeing as far as, I don't know, trends or ideas or brainstorming within your group to kind of understand what might the future of design look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see the transition to the new normal being different for everyone and every company. It's definitely a way of saying it's a time to think about this differently from the experiences that we've had. Our workplace team, works with lots of different clients in different types of industries, and there's just been a lot of discussions about what is our space going to be like. Brokers are wondering, are clients going to want more square footage? Are they going to want less square footage? We've been talking a little bit about, is there these co-working concepts? So where some people are leasing out a space together, so when they have meetings, they can come into the workplace, but then when they're focusing on their independent work, they're at home. I saw one of the questions pop up in the Q&A about this hybrid collaboration, and one thing that our company is doing as we do transition back into the office, still doing all meetings set up on a virtual platform, so that no matter if somebody's at home or if they're in the office, they're actually going to be engaged at the same level. So now changing the meeting standard to that virtual connection. But we're also seeing, you know, our manufacturers representatives are reaching out daily, and they're coming up with products and materials to help support this change. And the biggest thing that we're seeing, it's really, it used to be the word we would hear was flexibility. But now it's more about adaptability and how we can restructure spaces quickly. How can we make our coworkers and their clients feel comfortable? It's a lot about perception, about how they feel when they walk into their office space. Knowing that there's some set guidelines established. So currently I am also part of a team similar to Holly and Amber were talking about, is focusing on what does that return to work look like, and I'm addressing it on the furniture side, and what does that mean from the minute you walk in the door to the time you go to your desk, the time you step away into a public space. So really addressing those spaces as a way to provide comfort for your employees. But really moving forward, it's just going to be about thinking about innovation of what could be our new normal. We're never going to go back to how it was previously. There's been some excitement of how people can have a little bit more of that work-life balance and be able to feel that they can manage that a little bit more themselves independently. So that's what I'm excited about, to see where things move. But we have all these resources right now, but it's finding those best solutions for each person. It's for us, it's for our clients, it's for, you know, our partners that we engage with.
Well, since I'm a multi-family gal, I'm going to share my perspective on how I might think it might impact our design work. And about a week into our virtual work, my boss, Ray Johnston, started an email thread in our office titled, "How would multifamily change?" And the answers were really interesting and pretty varied, including one of my favorites, a response from a friend and colleague who had only lived in a multifamily building for a month. She had just moved in, and she was remarking on how much she really appreciated that random social interaction in those common spaces when she first moved in. But once COVID hit, she was anxious to just leave her apartment to retrieve her mail. And when she did, she encountered two neighbors, and they just all froze. None of them really knew what to do because the hallways were just too narrow to pass at a distance of 6 feet or more. So I guess one design move that we can make is to potentially provide wider hallways. But someone else also noted that maybe we need to be clustering our units instead of lining them up along a long hallway. A couple other things that were thrown out that I liked, material considerations. Apparently some materials encourage viruses while others don't. And I think it does vary from virus type to virus type. So for coronavirus, copper and porous or textural surfaces are apparently better. Airflow is also important. So some ideas were having operable windows in all spaces, also balancing the air pressure between units and common spaces for our mechanical engineer friends. Automatic doors, touchless access, touchless everything, right, in those common spaces. And then also avoiding kind of small enclosed spaces or dead-end areas. And so as I read all these emails, I found myself nodding in agreement. But there was one final email on the thread that really resonated with me. And it was a reminder that as designers, we've always been taught to create spaces that cultivate interaction, right? And so here we are, all having to rely on these virtual means of interacting. But he provided an example, which is just designing more courtyards into our multifamily buildings. And they have the ability to create a feeling of passive interaction between neighbors. So some of those interactions can actually just be from your own window across the courtyard. And one thing I thought of when I read that was, you know, in the beginning of the virus, the outbreak, we were seeing a lot of videos of people in Spain or Italy where they would just be out on their balcony singing. And so it's kind of like that, right? So where we have maybe less density than in Europe, we can create those kinds of spaces within our building complexes. So, and then also these well-designed courtyards with landscaping can also offer a variety of scales and spaces that are slightly active to allow more outdoor encounters. And so they're well ventilated, which is good in a time of COVID, right? And so this community has just become critical. So as designers, I think we can consider these more tangible responses that I noted earlier, but also prioritize providing the great spaces for gathering and for community.
Amber, you make a number of great points, and there's so much overlap between what your office specializes in and our office, TCF. We specialize in school design and industrial maintenance and operations facilities. And because of my role in the task force in our office, I was asked to sit in and partner with the project architect for a large multi-building operations center that's currently in design. And it's coming toward the end of design. And the client early on asked us to take a look and see if there's anything that they should consider looking at now, possibly changing to respond to everything that's happened to us lately. And so it was a really fun and invigorating exercise. And it was a short burn exercise where we spent 2 partial days really looking big to small, combing through the floor plans. And Amber, you had it right. Like, we looked at our corridors and they weren't wide enough to get the occupants 6 feet apart when passing. But what we found, and I'm kind of happy to feel like I've coined a new term, step aside spaces, which directly makes me think about when I'm going on walks in our neighborhood down the sidewalk and someone comes by and you kind of find a little spot and you step aside. And so in looking at this floor plan, we were seeing, okay, there's these little alcoves. And another opportunity is there's a small room here. When it's not in use, the door could be left open on a hold open so that as people pass each other, there's plenty of opportunity for those step aside moments to let folks pass. You know, a lot of other things that we identified, I've been hearing and reading about adapting mechanical systems, storage for PPE. One of the big things we looked at is there's a double height atrium there, and knowing what we know now about droplets and transmission and thinking about this balcony that overlooks this communal space down below, we hated to do it, but we had to ask the question, you know, should there be something we should be doing with this double height atrium, whether it's glassing it in or otherwise. So this comprehensive list that we've been working through is still in process, and it has a lot of great talking points. And I think it's so beneficial and healthy to have been key to looking at our own office and key to being part of this prep for the webinar, to hear ideas and think about what are we doing for ourselves and how could that benefit all of our clients and vice versa. So that's been a joy when we think about where the future of design might be headed.
I'll just speak for the world and say thank you for thinking about these challenges because, you know, where we live and work and our children go to school, you know, it's so important. And of course, things can evolve. And, you know, I'm sitting in my office today by myself. I look forward to this place being, you know, filled with my team and, you know, finding the spots to make that happen. And so I'm glad you guys are, you know, addressing it, and it'll be, I think it's going to be really great, the next evolution. You know, we're gonna I don't know, set up really cool systems like the conference room with the whiteboard, so you know you can do those things, or maybe we have these really great webcam setups with great cameras and lighting and that sort of thing, because this is the way we work now. So it's kind of, I think it's very exciting. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. We do have some questions if we want to move into that, and they really are about kind of the collaboration piece of it and how you're working with those tools. So I'd love to get those up or start having that conversation. And maybe in the meantime, Tracy can share the poll results, you know, so that we can transition to that before the end of this too. So the first question is, can Lori elaborate on Mural and other collaboration tools she mentioned that BCRA uses in conjunction with teams? So I'm sure you can, because you guys are heavy users in that area.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so Teams has an option where you can download their app plugins. So there's a million different ones you can connect with. Some are free, some have a fee to them. But Mural is one that we use when we're doing some of our brainstorming strategies. So one that we've been doing recently, it's called Unicorn Brainstorming. And the fun thing with Mural, if you're in person doing this strategy, you may have everyone around the table has sticky notes. They're writing around their big idea. So you frame a question. So we did something at the very beginning about how can we help our communities during COVID. And so stating a question and then allowing people just to think big ideas, like how can we really impact our community? So there's no wrong answer, crazy, outrageous ideas, everybody's writing them down. But Mural actually allows individuals to create a sticky note and write on them as well. And you can do it all live. So everyone is putting them together, and then you can have your meeting organizers start grouping similar concepts together. And so at the end of the day, you have this whole structure laid out and people are able to be actively engaging. They can even download information and post it from the internet. They can do links and photos. But one of the great things when we did this at the very beginning with our staff is we wanted our staff to feel like they could do more than just, social distance. What can we do for our community? So a few things that came out of that brainstorming session is we provided a workshop for multi-care to come in and make face masks and some other supplies that they just didn't have space to work. And so we were able to open up our office since we were all at home. We've also been feeding some of our local healthcare workers weekly, providing meals. And so some of that was done just by BCRA, but some of that was done by donations of staff. So this last month was 100% paid by staff donations. So we've taken these opportunities to use a program where we can all be seeing and moving and talking, similar to how you used to do it around a conference table, but in this virtual platform. So Mural has been really great for that. Envision Freehand is another plugin that's very similar. You can actually link documents like Photoshop or InDesign into there. So as somebody's at their desktop updating, it can automatically update on that page. And you can tie it to your Teams channel, so it can just be an open structure for people to add information to. So those are just a few things we've done with some of those tools.
Yeah, Lori, any thoughts on the kind of learning curve or, getting people up to speed on using something like Mural for that collaboration?
Yeah, fortunately we have an amazing marketing director, so she took it on herself to do some webinars. So you need to have some, and then people started really grabbing the opportunity to try it out on their project. So our multifamily team has probably been the biggest user of that collaboration tool. And we are doing some meetings here in just a short bit regarding Mural as well, where we're gonna be designing some t-shirts for local nonprofits. And so Mural is gonna be our format for collaborating.
Cool. So someone else is wondering if we can provide a little insight to hybrid collaboration when some people are, in the office and some people are still working remotely. I've heard from some teams, they're like, well, it's 100%, virtual. Even before COVID, they're like, if anyone can't be there in person, we need to kind of have that equity. But what if there is sort of that hybrid situation?
Well,
Open to everyone.
Jump in and talk about the plan that is shaping up in our office. And I know this was mentioned earlier, but with the talk about having all meetings online, or at least having the technology for everyone, regardless of where you are, have the ability to join in. And so what we're moving closer to is a plan of A team and B team, or A days and B days. And so the thought behind that would keep folks from one studio together on one day, a deep clean between, and then folks from our other studio on the following 2 days. So Monday, Tuesday, deep clean, Wednesday, Thursday, deep clean, and then Friday is just open to who wants to come in the office on Friday, which we really don't anticipate would be that many people. So, you know, of course, there's holes that you can poke in any plan or any theory when you really kind of get down to how people move and how we might be exposing each other. But our office is taking a super sensitive approach to when someone's assigned to an A day or a B day, definitely not insisting that they be there, but they have permission to be there. And so there are some folks who we've offered everyone the opportunity to just sort of opt out. And this really only has to do with the months of July and August, because after August, we think the deck is going to shuffle again, and guidelines might change and school schedules might change. And so our approach to reoccupying and collaborating the office will look something like I described, and it will be kind of probably a skeleton crew at first, but the big idea behind getting folks back together overall is people really just miss that one-on-one collaboration. And to those who that's, you know, super important to them, we have a number of ways of keeping them safe and everyone plugged in and able to kind of just hit the ground running like we have been in this restart process.
Mm-hmm. Right. When I saw the poll results pop up for a little bit, I mean, it was definitely really heavily weighted on that answer A, which is the limited face-to-face time. And it's funny because obviously we are face-to-face here, but it's not in person, and there's just all of those elements that we talked about earlier. So finding you know, a hybrid approach and the you know, layered scheduling and things where people do have some more interaction. I think maybe it's one of those things that it will continue to evolve as we see what works and doesn't work, and, you know, how people are comfortable and just, you know, the impacts of coming back together. But it sounds like that's going to be a major driver. People are going to be looking for how do we do that safely, and because it, you know, just brings so much more of the creativity of the team together.
For sure.
Does anyone want to comment on, you know, how the breakout rooms are structured? Do you have a room facilitator when you're doing that in Zoom and other platforms? Any best practice to talk about how you go from 70 people at a company meeting down to rooms of 5, that piece of it?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So what we typically do is we have a room leader. So you'll have your kind of your main meeting facilitator talk about the goal of what should be discussed in those breakout sessions. And then you'll have a leader. And so you can actually define those in your Zoom settings. You can go in and assign your main leader to each room. You can even assign all the attendees if you want, or Zoom can automatically randomize and put people all over the place. And then you can set a timeline, a timer for it. So you can set the timer for 20 minutes. At the end of that time, the meeting organizer can actually pop into each room, see how people are doing, if they need more time. If not, after a minute, it'll pop up a timeline that you'll be popped in back into the main group. But what we found, it's really helpful after those conversations to come back as a larger group and have those room leaders debrief on what was discussed. And we've been using the function in Zoom of the whiteboard you can pull up as the meeting organizer and document those conversations. So it's really great. When you set record on Zoom, it will record those whiteboards as well. So yeah, I would say just making sure that you have it preset. It is a little stressful as a meeting organizer to make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. But there's been some great benefit, and we've had great conversations, and I just love to be able to pop into a room and just be surprised at who I get to be with, because some of those people aren't people I got to work with a lot when I was in the office, because they may be in a different market, or they could be somebody in admin or just a completely different group. So it's really fun to just have those conversations with people you haven't previously had the chance to do so. So that's my quick Zoom breakdown of the year.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get another webinar on the calendar for later on when we can expand on this stuff. But, you know, that's our time for today. I knew it was going to go by really quickly. I just want to say, you know, thank you so much, Holly, Amber, Lori, for sharing your perspectives on this and your ideas. Obviously, we totally agree that there's opportunity here, and it's a time to be creative and challenge old standards. So thanks for providing input to that. And I think crew will be able to send out this link to all the participants. So if you want to kind of revisit it, you can. So thank you again for spending your time here, and thank you, Crew Seattle, for hosting us. We appreciate it. Have a great day and be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.